Hello and welcome to episode 28 of Fergo and the Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewRLP. Joining me once again is Rugby League expert, League Freak, who you can find on Twitter at League Freak. How's things going, mate?
They're pretty good, fellow Rugby League expert. It would have been good if New South Wales could have won last night, but you can't win them all, or any of them, apparently.
Even some of them.
Yeah.
Some would be nice.
Yeah. But, what can you do?
Well, you can go on Twitter and bitch and moan about it for days on end.
Yeah, that's what I intend to do. I've got so many replies to tweets that I sent 14 hours ago that I've moved on from.
Yeah, I've had a fair few. I didn't really tweet that much, but I had a few people on there who started having arguments with one another over a tweet that I made, which is pretty innocuous.
Mm-hmm.
I had one person call me a idiot on social media, some other rubbish, and he was a South fan. He didn't like the fact that I said that Cody Walker had a bad game.
He got hooked.
Yeah.
How can he be upset that... Oh, anyway.
Yeah, you can't really defend a half who gets hooked
at
the top level like that.
Can you think of another Origin player that's been like a skill player? Because it's easier to hook a forward, but can you think of another skill player that's been hooked?
No. I mean, not even... This is the sad thing. Not even Mitchell Pearce got hooked.
Yeah.
Just let that sink in, South fans.
I'm rubbing my forehead again.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to zip past that because New South Wales lost.
Yeah, if they'd won this whole episode, it would have been a 3-hour episode, basically about New South Wales winning the series and all that. But they lost, so moving on.
Yeah. Today, we're going to look at the 2019 Players Poll that was recently published on the NRL website. So they went there and asked every player for their opinions on a range of questions, mostly positional-based stuff, but other issues as well. We'll have a look and throw in our 2 bobs worth as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Look, I didn't look too much into the previous player polls that Rugby League Week used to do, but I would guess that in these player polls they're not asking questions like, do you think the NRL is doing a good job? Do you think Todd Greenberg should be sacked?
It's not exactly impartial.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I suppose that's the thing to take note is that it is going to be a little bit fluffy, we'll call it.
That's a good point, yeah. Because they used to, Rugby League Week used to ask some pretty good questions for a while there.
Yeah, and there were things like, do you think drugs is an issue in the game?
Yeah. Do you think you're underpaid?
Mm.
Things like that. And the answer, by the way, if anyone ever says that, you always say yes.
Yeah.
Unless you Clint Gutherson.
Well, you even say it then because you know you'll get an upgrade in pay.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. It turns your contract from being like a minimum wage salary to $650,000 a year. Well done, Parramatta.
Well done, Parramatta. All right. Fullback. Who is the best fullback in the NRL?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 55% said James Tedesco. 23% was Tuivasa Sheck. 9% Kalen Ponga. Your old mate Clint Gutherson got 5%, and Tom Trbojevic had 3%.
Wow, that's interesting that Tedesco is, more than half the people that were surveyed, players that were surveyed, said him, because I would have thought it was level pegging between him and Tuivasa Sheck.
Yeah, look, I think it's hard. You can make arguments for both players.
Yeah.
I would probably have Tuivasa Sheck slightly ahead, but I'm talking by the slimmest of margins. Tedesco is improving at such a good rate that he's going to overtake RTS. If not this year, then definitely by next year, in my opinion. Especially having that good team around him he's got there at the Roosters, whereas RTS is in that regularly beaten side.
Yeah.
And the reason why they're not constantly beaten is because of him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that's maybe the difference right now between the two is that, Tuivasa Sheck is the Warriors' attack a lot of the time. He's playing a lone hand almost in a lot of games, whereas Tedesco is running off the back of a lot of things that other players are doing. And that's not to say that he's not creating things, but RTS is doing that with no one creating stuff a lot of the time. So that's probably where I give him the edge. But you're talking about, maybe two of the top 5 players in the game. I mean, easily two of the top 5 players in the game. And, they're both playing so well. It's hard to poke holes in either of them to give the other one the edge. I think if you swap them on teams, if you swap them around, they do just as good of a job as each other.
Yeah. The surprising one for me is how high Gutherson rated, obviously.
Yeah.
Especially being above Tom Trbojevic, because, I mean, let's face it, if you had to pick between those two as your fullback, you'd pick the guy who's actually played for Australia and played State of Origin, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's not even a question.
Yeah.
Not even a question.
The other one that surprised me is that Dallin Watene-Zelezniak's not on that list.
Yeah,
given the epic effort he had in playing for New Zealand last year.
Yeah, and that was a man's performance, that one. He stood head and shoulders above everyone on the field that day. He's still so young and got a big, bright future ahead of him. I'd love to have him on my club.
Yeah, we won't go into that.
No.
So
we don't need to hear me crying.
So just to look back on last year's results now compared, Billy Slater topped the voting in 2018 at 60%. Ponga was 11%. RTS had 10%. Tom Trbojevic 6%, and Tedesco had 5%.
Okay. Wow, Tedesco's come a long way. It's hard to go against Slater, though. I mean, all-time great.
Absolutely. Next is Winger. This is slightly closer, this one.
Mm-hmm.
So 33% said Blake Ferguson, 24% Josh Adokar, 10% Corey Oates, 8% Ken Malmelo, 7% Jordan Rapana.
Yeah, I would think that Blake Ferguson probably gets a little bit of a boost because of his work rate. I think for pure wingers, Adokar it's hard to beat him. And that's not saying that Blake Ferguson's not a pure winger. Ferguson does get through a lot of work, and because he's so big and strong, he can almost play that role that Wendell Sailor used to play, where he's almost running as an extra forward. So I would guess that that's where he gets a little bit of an extra edge over Adokar.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, I also put Adokar up there. The bloke is just an absolute speed freak that, the likes of which we haven't seen in a long, long time. And
but not only that, sorry, go on.
He also knows how to score tries, and that's the main thing you want from a winger.
Yeah, and even last night when you watched him, he got in and did a lot of work, and it's different sort of work that someone like Ferguson does. But he was really asking a lot of questions, and I thought that was great to see, because that's the next level for a winger, I think, is when you're not just doing your job, but you're going in looking for work, especially early in a set. And he was doing that last night and making Queensland really work around the ruck. So that was fantastic to see. But yeah, I can completely understand them. I'm glad that Rapana got a look in. He's a really good player. I like what he does down there in Canberra.
I'd have him above Corey Oates and Ken Malmelo, though, for myself.
Yeah, so would I.
I rate Rapana pretty damn highly.
Yeah, he's one of those players that you could pick him in any side at any level and you don't have to worry about that position. He's going to get the job done. He's going to get it done way better than average. I really rate him as well. I agree with you. I'd have him above those two, definitely.
Ken Malmelo being on the list does surprise me.
Yeah, it does me too. I mean, I guess at some point, statistically, you just need a few players to toss up his name. He wouldn't have been on my list, though. I'm not saying this jokingly, I'd even put someone like Anthony Don there, because Anthony Don just seems to be, I'd
I wouldn't call him a game breaker, but he's what I'd say is reliable, which I think is one of a great asset in a winger.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, and the other thing is too. I think specialist wingers are underrated. A lot of the time, they'll chuck just a player out there, and they may be utility or they can play a few different positions. But I think when you've got a specialist winger, you get something extra out of them. And I think that goes missing sometimes in rugby league, that when you see a real specialist doing their job out there in the wing, they really do a great job.
Absolutely. So I'd probably have, God, there's so many you could choose from too. Like Nick Kotrick stands out for one.
Mm-hmm.
Suliasi Vunivalu, Daniel Tupou.
Mansour. I mean,
Mansour.
he still plays at a pretty high level.
He's just starting to play with a bit of confidence too. Like he's overcome that horrible, facial injury that he had.
Yeah.
And you can tell that at the start of the year, he was playing in self-preservation mode a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're starting to see, like the last 2 weeks, he's starting to put his body on the line a bit more. He's got a bit more confidence in everything's going to be okay. And so he's getting back to that form that we know him for. He's not quite there yet, but he's moving in the right direction back towards it.
Yeah, no, look, I called him in a reserve grade game a few weeks ago now, and he was outstanding. Like you could just tell he was another level above the players he was playing with. And yeah, I agree with you. He's, at times you got the feeling that he was not throwing himself into the tackle like he used to, but that is coming back to him. And I've got no problems with a player taking a little bit of time to get back, as long as they're not playing terribly. Like as long as they're doing their job, I don't mind giving a player a few weeks just to get used to the hits and stop worrying about that as the first thing they're thinking about when they're running the ball back. So yeah, look, and as a Panthers player, as a Panthers fan, I'm not a player, not anymore. It just feels like it. I just feel the disappointment. He's one of the players I don't worry about in the Panthers. He's one of the guys that I'm not looking at and thinking, well, he's part of the problem. He just definitely isn't.
No. So in 2018 for the winger, Josh Adokar ranked highest with 27%. Mm-hmm. Fusatua had 21, Rapana 12, Valentine Holmes 10%, and Corey Oates and Blake Ferguson were tied on 8%. So
wow,
it's amazing how a change in form for a club makes everyone forget some of the players there, because Fusatua was unbelievable last year, but he's not even in the discussion this year.
It also makes you think about the club that you play for as well. Maybe at Parramatta, you watch Parramatta play, and Ferguson his performance hasn't changed from last year, I don't think. But because he's standing out in a Parramatta side that is pretty average, it really stands out to people now, what he does.
Yeah.
So I think that probably comes into it a little bit as well.
That's very true. Now, possibly the most lopsided one. Mm-hmm. Centre. They picked Latrell Mitchell with 80%.
Wow.
Jared Croker was next with 4. Joseph Manu 3. Michael Jennings 3. And Dane Gagai 2.
Wow. So, to me, that just says but that basically everyone else is the statistical anomalies, and it's, it could have been anyone based on a couple of votes here and there.
Yeah.
I don't rate Crocker. He's a great goal kicker. I don't rate him as a centre. But Mitchell, yeah, it's hard to argue with. Last night he had a terrible game in Origin 1, but that's the worst game he's played in his whole career. Outside of that, I can't think of anyone else that would even get close to him.
So I'm not too sure how many players they interviewed for this, but they said the surprise was that James Roberts in 2019 didn't register a single vote.
Oh, wow.
And Will Chambers only received 2 votes, despite last year topping this with 31% of the vote.
Wow. Chambers hasn't had an awesome year. He's been solid, but he hasn't been awesome.
I was almost going to argue, though, that he's been better this year than he was last year.
Really?
I think defensively he's been a lot more solid this year. He's lost a yard of pace in the last few years, Um, but I think this year his technique has improved in a way to try and cover for his loss in pace. And I think we saw a bit of that last night in the Origin. And I think he's been better this year than he was last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I love seeing it when a player does that, by the way, when they change their game because they know athletically they can't get to where they were.
Yeah.
I think that shows a really smart player. But yeah, look, he used to have these battles with Mitchell. And last night it wasn't a battle. It was all one-sided.
Yeah.
And it was kind of shockingly one-sided. And as you say,
I was going to say actually to the point where New South Wales stopped going that way.
Yeah, and it was, as you say, because he's lost that yard of pace that he used to have, where he could beat you with his speed. He's doing it in other ways, and I don't know if Mitchell was shocked by that, if it put him off his game. But I mean, he was just terrible last night. Maybe it was just one of those games.
Hard to tell. Yeah. 2018 votes. So Will Chambers 31%, Inglis had 21%, Ewan Aiken 13, Latrell Mitchell 11, and Josh Dugan 4.
Okay, here's a question for you: if Inglis pulls on the boots tomorrow, says I'm back, baby, where do you put him? In terms of the rankings of centres, where would you put him?
Above Mitchell.
Really?
Yeah. I think we saw last night a flaw with Latrell Mitchell that doesn't exist with Greg Inglis. And that is when you put Inglis on the big stage, when the pressure's on, he delivers. Whereas Mitchell was unable to do anything. And I think that's a telling point.
That's a really good point, though. That is a really good point. Like if you say you swapped, and it's two good New South Wales wingers, Latrell Mitchell for Greg Inglis. Greg Inglis doesn't play like that last night.
No. Furthermore, Inglis would be the sort of person to realise that there was a bit of trauma in the middle, and he'd go looking to help out, and he could actually make a difference in there. Because Inglis as a player was so multi-skilled and multi-talented. You could have put him in pretty much anywhere in any team, and he'd have delivered brilliantly no matter where you put him. You could even put him in the front row. You know, the bloke was just... I haven't seen such a multi-skilled player like that before.
Yeah, and did it on the biggest stages, and we've talked about this before. Wing, centre, fullback, 5'8". I actually thought that maybe if he ended up having a really long career, and look, his knee issue's a problem, I still wouldn't be shocked if he come back next year. But if he was the sort of player that played until he was 36, 37, which I physically feel like he could do definitely, I wouldn't have been shocked if he ended up being in the back row. Because
he would have been lethal in there.
Yeah, he has the size. The footwork would have been incredible. I have no doubts that he'd get through the work physically. And the skill, and the power. He had it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, I'd probably have Mitchell because he's got the goal kicking. He does have the lethal speed that I think Inglis is probably missing that first, the first 5 yards of speed. I think once he gets up to speed, he's probably still got it. But that first 5 yards, I think Mitchell would have him.
Oh, definitely.
But as you say, can you ever remember Greg Inglis having a bad game?
Not really, no. He was just one of those guys who just, even when he had an error, he managed to find a way to redeem himself and fix the problem somewhere else along the way.
Yeah.
Just a phenomenal athlete.
Definitely.
Next, 5'8". Luke Keary tops the charts at 41%, followed by Munster, 32, Cody Walker, 18, Sean Johnson, 3, and then Anthony Milford and James Maloney were tied at 2%.
Okay, that's interesting. Who do you think is the best 5'8" in the game right now, if you had to pick one person?
That's tough. I'd probably lean towards Munster.
Yeah, for me, I don't think it's tough. I think it's Munster and then Daylight.
For me, it comes down to who the halfback is as to who would be the best 5'8", but
Mm-hmm.
Munster just looks to be, Keary's not bad either, but I think Munster's just looks to have that better defensive aspect to his game,
Mm-hmm.
which is very helpful in the middle. And the fact he could play halfback and he could play fullback shows
Yeah.
that he's got pretty good game awareness.
He'd probably be one of the top centres in the game even. And I think the thing about Munster is, and it's really come through this year completely, I feel like he's got a real command of the game where he has almost taken responsibility for not just being an extra part of these great teams in the Storm and the Queensland team last night even. He knows that he is a player that can make the big calls, that if he sees something, don't be afraid to go for it because everyone hopes you do because you're the man now. I think he's one of the top players in the game, and he's one of my first pick for an Australian team. I really, really rate him so highly. And the fact that he's got that size as well about him and the power running, I really love that. And that's something that Keary's a little bit of a different player. He's a slighter player and he more uses his speed and agility. But Munster, I kind of liken him to almost someone like a Brad Fittler in terms of he uses his size as a weapon at 5'8".
I was actually going to say that, especially a young Fittler. Because the difference between the two is when Fittler was young, he regularly ran the ball a lot more than he drifted sideways.
Mm-hmm.
And as he got older, and obviously a little bit slower, he was smarter about when he used his big step, because that was still always epic.
Yeah.
Whereas Munster is kind of the same. He does run a lot more than drift sideways. And that's what makes him hard to defend against, because he's got a great short ball as well.
Yeah, and I think he's so good. And you know what, I love picking him as an anytime try scorer. Because he gets close to that line, and he's the most dangerous player in the Storm team. When they're close to the line, he's the one to watch.
Yep, fully agree. Now, last year, almost completely different players in this thing. Last year, Maloney topped the count with 36%. Then came Widdop, 20%. Munster had 13%. Blake Green was on 11%, and Milford was at 9%.
Wow. Blake Green.
See, a lot of people you don't hear anyone really talk about Blake Green. The one thing I like about him is that he's never been flashy, but he always does a bloody good job out there. And he seems to be one of those players that gives the rest of the team around him a bit more confidence just by being there. You see the way the Warriors play when he's not there, and they look completely lost. But he turns up, and it's like, oh, we've got a GPS unit. We're all good. We'll be fine to go now.
That's a really good point. He's almost like, and we've talked about it a few times in the podcast, and we talked about it with the Broncos, where we said, you know what they need? They need some grizzled old, football head that plays 5'8" or halfback just to chuck there in the halves and just be like, listen, I'm going to give you direction, and that's all I'm going to give you. And he's almost that version, but he's a first-grade player. And look, I don't know that you could say confidently he's a first-grade player, but what he gives you in that sense is the reason why he's in first grade, because he does that so well. He does give you that direction. He does guide you around the field. And that's a skill. That's a big skill. And it's something that a team like the Warriors desperately needs. There's a bunch of teams that need it. I mean, the Broncos need it as well. But I guess that if you look at the statistics from last year in that player poll, there was probably Warriors players that were like, yeah, this guy is the best 5'8" because he's the best one I've ever played under. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, moving on to halfback. And the thing that's interesting about the halfback one is that there were two halfbacks that played, two NRL club halfbacks who played in the Origin game last night, and they're not even on this list in the top 5.
Wow.
So we've got Cooper Cronks at the top on 39%, Mitchell Pearce 14%, DCE 11%, Adam Reynolds 7%, and Chad Townsend 6%.
Wow.
There's no Cleary and there's no Ben Hunt.
Okay. Look, I get Cleary because the Panthers have been playing like crap, and I think that he's a young bloke. If he was there, you would be a little bit shocked. Ben Hunt, I rate Ben Hunt, but the problem is when the big games are on, he can make a mistake. Outside of that, he's a fantastic player.
Yeah, I always feel sad when I watch Ben Hunt play because you know how good he is, but you also know that he's suffered mentally from that one little mistake, which turned to be obviously an epic one in the grand final there. I think a part of him has refused to let that go, and I can understand why. I mean, in his mind, he's thinking, "I've just cost us the grand final." There's more than one moment that cost the team a grand final. There's been 80 odd minutes played before then that's contributed in some way to that. But I think he's kind of lived with that. You see every time he drops a ball now, everyone just sort of goes, "Oh no, he's done it again." Or something. That's not helping.
No, and that's a good point. And I think that you can almost see it that he reacts to that reaction as well.
More often than not, he'll get up and you'll see a smile on his face because he knows that's what everyone else is thinking.
Yeah,
and it's playing on the back of his mind. But I look beyond that. See, the problem I've always had with Ben Hunt, drop ball in the grand final side even before then, is the only time I recall him playing, to his full potential and his absolute best ability seems to be regularly when they're up against teams that were either out of form or they were down the wrong end of the ladder.
Yeah.
So I always liken him to a flat track bully.
Yeah. I think Mitchell Pearce is the same.
Mitchell Pearce is the same, yeah. You put him in against a quality side. If they have to play, especially if they have to play like an Origin game and 2 or 3 top NRL sides in a row around the same period, they tend to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And they only seem to come back after playing a few weak teams. That's just my opinion. I could obviously be wrong, but that's just my view. And I've always thought of him as more of a flat track bully. You get halfbacks that are like that anyway.
Yeah, look, and it is almost, and I think that we're a little bit skewed because, and when I say we, pretty much anybody that's watching rugby league these days, our opinions are skewed a little bit because we watched Andrew Johns, who is in the whole history of the game is one of the very few halfbacks that could be behind a beaten pack in a beaten side against a better opposition team and drag his team kicking and screaming to a victory based on what he was able to do as an individual. Not many halfbacks ever have had that ability. So I think that skews everyone's thoughts in that regard. But yeah, the other thing with Ben Hunt that I really like is the way that he works. And when you're close to the line, he is really so dangerous when he's attacking the line. Because even if he's off the ball, he's great at chasing through kicks and things like that. He gets a lot of tries. So I like that about him. But who was it again that topped it was Cronk. I think that's fair. Cronk topped the list.
Then Pearce, DCE, Adam Reynolds, Chad Townsend. Now look, I've spoken about Townsend before. I think he's underrated, and I think it's because he's never come across as being flashy.
Yeah,
but he's another one of those Blake Green type players.
Yeah,
and to be honest, in this day and age, where your halfback doesn't do all the work anymore in attack, they do pretty much a bit of the steering of the team around the field, and obviously the general play kicking. But he's got so many X-factor players around him outside the halves that he doesn't need to be that sort of player. Especially now that he's got Sean Johnson in the side. He's going to have Wade Graham parked on one edge. You've got Matt Moylan at fullback. Bronson Cherry in the centres. He's got different firepower all around him. He doesn't need to be a flashy player. He just needs to find a way to make them work to suit the game's game plan. And I think he's one of the best game managers there is out there. Yeah, especially when it comes to his side.
And two things that people forget about that I've always rated really highly is a player that's dependable and a player that is just never injured. Like
That's exactly right, especially in the halves.
yeah, he's always going to be there. Like, through the entire season for the Sharks, who the halfback's going to be, and that is gold.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. You get a lot of halfbacks. Mitch Moses is a classic example. Okay, in all seriousness, you're going to get a handful of great games from Mitch Moses every year. You don't know when they're going to come.
Mm-hmm.
You also know you're going to get a bunch of donkey games from him, and you also don't know when they're going to come. And you can't have that as a halfback. You've either got to be constantly brilliant or be constantly reliable.
Mm.
If you have those donkey games, it ruins everything for everyone. It can actually cost your team the game, and probably even a bit, by a big way. And you don't often find Townsend having a really, really bad game.
Mm-hmm.
It may be one or two a year. He had one game in the final series in 2016 where he got hooked at halftime, I think. Mm-hmm. But ever since then, I don't think he's had an absolute shocker game. I think he's been solid, reliable, dependable, and he's helped the team direct them around the park really well. And I was talking him up as a genuine option for New South Wales at halfback for game one.
Yeah, look, if when you were saying that, and because I think you're the only person I've really heard pushing for him for the halfback for New South Wales, and I thought it was a great idea. I understand why they went with Cleary, because they're almost investing in Cleary. He's so young, and the other thing about Cleary is he doesn't really stuff up. He doesn't make really bad mistakes. And that's something that's really good in a halfback as well. But if they'd have picked Townsend, I wouldn't have had any problems with it for that reason. If Australia picked him in a test match, I wouldn't have any problems with it.
No, that's the thing. I suppose the reason why I was kind of a little bit more in favour of him for game one is I thought that his style would have helped Cody Walker more than Nathan Cleary's style would have. Mm-hmm. And that's not a criticism of the way Cleary had been playing. Even if Cleary had been in great form, I just don't think that his style would have worked well with Walker as well as Chad Townsend's would.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion, though.
No, I agree with that. I think the thing with Cleary is his game at the moment, and you've always got to grade him on a scale of that he's a young halfback. His best years are ahead of him, way ahead of him. Right now, he's really good with short balls and stuff, but he hasn't yet got that long ball and the vision out in deep in his back line just yet. And that's where having somebody like Maloney as his offsider is great to have, because Maloney can do that. And so you've got like Cleary looking for short balls and stuff in the middle of the field. And then if there's nothing on, he gets it out to Maloney, who can look to the winger and see if he's open. And yeah, with Walker last night, and I didn't even think of this going in, but that's kind of not what Walker needs. Walker needs to have somebody that they use him as a threat and then they go to him. The threat could be deep in the back line, cutting out Walker and stuff, but the one time you go to Walker and he's able to use his footwork and that, and he can make something happen. And I didn't think of that going into the game. I thought it would have worked all right, and it just didn't, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that comes down to for Cleary is because he is so young. I think he still gets told when and where he needs to pass to, so he's not. He hasn't got that instinct set down solid yet.
Yeah.
So when he's in a situation, I think when he goes near the line, if he's not confident that he can get there himself or he can make the right play, he won't take to the line. He'll find someone to pass it to, and he'll be looking for a call somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the mindset he's in at the moment. He's taken that first step towards autonomous thinking for a halfback. And so sometimes you'll just see those little moments, and it's caused, obviously, Penrith a few losses this year, where he's sort of been caught half between what he thinks he should do and what he thinks he probably shouldn't be doing. And
yeah.
So I think it's probably taken him about 18 months to sort of get through that process and sort himself out. But I think he's kind of around that area there.
Yeah, and I feel like early in the game last night, you could see he was really telling players where he wanted them to be.
Yeah.
And that's something you want out of him. And he's in that awkward transition between I'm kind of doing what I feel like everyone wants me to do rather than like, this is what we should be doing. I'm being confident in the calls that he's making, and he'll get there. I've got no worries about Cleary. I don't know why everyone else is worrying about him because it's the process.
The process also is that when New South Wales lose, you shit on the halfback.
Yeah. But I think we do that because for so long we had a legitimate reason to shit on the halfback.
That's right.
It really was. You'd look at this team and you'd be like, man, they've got some good players here. But where the fuck was Pearce? And I think that, it starts a culture.
It does. In 2018, Thurston topped the vote with 35%. Hunt had 19%. Cleary had 11%. Johnson 11%. And Cronk was on 9%.
Oh, there you go. Wow, Cronk. Big turnaround.
All right. Prop. The top props in the game. Torquiaho, 26%.
Wow.
Jesse Bromwich, 18%. Andrew Fafita, 7%. Waria Hargrave, 6%. And Clemmer, 5%.
I can't believe Clemmer's that low.
Yeah, it does look to be a reasonably tightish sort of field.
Yeah.
Obviously, the one person that's gone missing there is Regan Campbell-Gillard. And also, I suppose, I don't know if you put Sam Burgess in there or not. No, he wouldn't be propped that much.
I feel like, he'd be second row, maybe lock even, yeah.
So, I'm surprised Torquiaho ranked as highly. I'm not surprised that he's in the top 5, though, because he has had a bloody good year this year.
Yeah, definitely. I also think you're getting to a point, and it's something we need to think about with this whole player poll, is that some of it will be people thinking about what they consider a player to have done last year because they haven't faced them this year.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But I'm obviously not surprised or concerned that Campbell-Gillard only got 1 vote this year.
No, he's had one of those. I mean, I don't know what's happened to his running game. He's running like he's worried about getting hurt.
That's probably what it is. Yeah, he had that horrible jaw injury. Again, I think it's mental. I think once he gets a bit of confidence that he's not going to break his jaw every time he goes into a tackle, he'll probably go back to that fearless running that he had that was just so bloody awesome to watch.
I think it probably also stands out too because he was a New South Wales player last year, and this year he's not playing as well, and he's not running like he used to. But he's also playing in a pack, which is overall playing extremely soft and just isn't putting in the effort. And so you look at their pack, and he's the first one. You're like, well, why is he not playing? And it's everyone in that pack except for Kikau to a certain extent. That's just playing soft. So he cops the brunt of a lot of that, which is fair enough. It's what you've got to, you get that extra money as a rep player. You got to cop the criticism.
Exactly. So last year they called it, I hate these terms, best middle forward.
Yeah, what the hell's that?
Just call them props for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
So last year they had for their best middle forward. So obviously these are going to include locks. They had Tormalolo 34%, Burgess 23%, Jake Trbojevic 10%, Campbell-Gillard at 5%, Jesse Bromwich and Andrew Fafita both had 4%. So it was basically locks and 2 props at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, Tormalolo should be 100%.
Well, speaking of Tormalolo, we'll go to the locks, and he's got 45% of the votes for best lock. Jake Trbojevic 20%, Cameron Murray 15%, Dale Finucane 8%, and Jai Arrow 5%. I must say though, there's been so many locks this year that have been playing out of their bloody boots. I'm not surprised to see that Tom Malolo did not get 100%. So many of them have been playing absolutely stunning footy. They were going to get votes somewhere along the line.
Yeah, I guess at some point, Taumalolo, it becomes a case of like, you get used to what he's doing and you think, you know what, he's playing pretty well. This guy, I might vote for him. In my opinion, Taumalolo should have got 100%. The way what he does, and we're going to do a whole episode on him soon enough. Just a different level, just a completely different level.
Yeah, I can see him getting a golden boot sometime in the next few years, at least one anyway.
But too bad he's not English. He would have like 17 of them by now.
Exactly. There's not much more to discuss there because I don't argue with any of those people who got in the top five. I think they've got all that absolutely spot on. They've all been brilliant. Mm-hmm. Second rower, Sam Burgess, 54%. Kickout, 10%. Corden, 9%. Bateman and Tohu Harris, 7% each.
Well, Bateman shouldn't be there at all. That's the first thing. Burgess is having a really good year. I think this might be his best year. He's played really, really well. Kickout, it's good to see him in there. He's tailed off in the last few weeks. He was coming back from injury, though. And obviously Penrith's form hasn't helped. But yeah, apart from that, hard to argue.
Now, 2018, Tyson Frizzell topped this with 22%. Matt Gillette had 21%. Corden of 15%. Tohu Harris 13%. And Wade Graham 9%. Obviously hasn't played this year, so he's not going to get a mention. But just look at those two lists there and go, man, we have so many great second rows in this competition now.
Yeah, really do. And poor old Frizzell, I mean, he keeps on getting injured. And he's playing through so many things. It's crazy. And he's still playing really well. I thought he was good last night. But, yeah, I think that, and I've said this before, we're in such a golden age of forwards. I mean, even the worst teams have great, great forwards on them.
Yeah. All right, moving into hooker. And Cameron Smith, 44%. Damien Cook, 36%. Then you get Josh Hodgson, 5%. Reid Mahoney, 3%. And Jaden Brayley and Robbie Farah are tied on 2%.
Wow. Well, see, I wouldn't have Hodgson in there either.
Is it just because he's British?
It's got nothing to do with that, first of all. I just think he's overrated.
You completely dismiss Bateman as well. I'm wondering if there's some casual racism going on.
Well, listen, I'm the same race as them, all right?
I know.
You bastard. But yeah, I just think he's overrated. If he was as good as people were saying he was, the Raiders might actually have won something decent.
I don't think he's overrated, but because I think you see the difference he makes to the Raiders when he's not there and when he is there. Canberra are completely out of sorts when he doesn't play. You can't even back him when he doesn't play.
But here's the thing, right? He's injury prone. That's the first thing.
That's a problem, yes.
An injury prone hooker in the NRL. Massive, massive problem. The second thing is, he does make a big difference to the Canberra Raiders. I think if they got another decent hooker, they'd make a pretty big difference to the Raiders as well. I really do. I just think he's overrated. I think the thing about the Raiders for me is that they put too much value in fraud players, and they like guys that you can like, and I like guys that can win.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, just a different philosophy.
I can't argue with any of that.
Also, he's a pom. I mean, that's what the hell?
Well, see, that's the reason why I brought up the casual races thing. I was trying to see if I could get a pom bashing out of you.
Isn't it xenophobia when you don't like people from a different country? It's not that I don't like people from Great Britain. What's with the silence? You should have agreed with me there, Jeff.
I'll just let that hang for a little bit. So yeah, look, the interesting thing about this poll is Damien Cook has closed the gap immensely on Cameron Smith. So last year,
Yeah.
Smith had 66% and Cook had 8%.
Mm-hmm.
So after one great season, Smith's come down 22%, Cook's gone up 24%. There's now only 8% between the two.
Isn't it interesting with hookers in the game that, and you, like you think back through history, there's always one that rises above everyone else, and it's sort of like their era. And it's very rare that you've got more than a couple of hookers that are of a top level. I mean, that I guess going back to probably Benny Elias and Steve Walters was the last one I can think of where you had two really, really good hookers that were in their primes at the same time. And you could have picked, you had a real argument as to who was the best. It's almost as though the torch gets handed over to the next guy. And I feel like the next guy at the moment is Damien Cook. And look, I think Cameron Smith is still the best hooker in the game. I really do. Yeah. But, it's seeing Cook playing so well, and he's almost the perfect sort of hooker for the modern day game where he can absolutely, I think he's the best dummy half runner that I can think of seeing ever.
I think what we're going to see with Damien Cook is because he's different in a very unique way, and that is his blistering speed, especially from a standing start.
Mm-hmm. He's
going to change the way hookers play because we're going to start seeing clubs are going to start trying to find the next Damien Cook, someone blistering fast out of dummy half. I've even seen it this year at the West Tigers. Obviously, Robbie Farah's not blistering fast, but you're seeing Farah is trying to get off the mark really fast when he picks the ball up. He's doing a lot of those one-handed pickups to try and get ahead, try and get the markers turned around and get past them as quickly as possible. And I think that's a sort of sign that clubs are trying to work that way. Mm-hmm. But in saying that, the one player that's surprising on there is Reid Mahoney. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of hype over him this year. I'm not buying it though.
Yeah, why? Like, what's he done?
I don't know. Like, I'm not. He hasn't. I'll say this, Kay. He hasn't played bad, but I haven't seen enough of what he's done to think that he's ahead of Jaden Bradley, Robbie Farah. Even Danny Levi's been good this year. Isaac Luke.
Yeah.
The fact I'm naming these players, there's even Jake Granville. I just don't put him above them yet. He's only young. He's still got time to go, but to learn a lot of stuff. I just don't think I wouldn't put him in that order.
I've seen nothing from him that says to me, keep an eye on this kid. And it's pretty harsh to say something like that. Yeah. But I just haven't seen what maybe other people have seen. I don't get it. And I think that it's imperative that the Parramatta Eels lock him into a 5-year deal for $700,000.
Lock him down.
Get him locked in.
So the 2019 player poll team is Tedesco, Ferguson, Mitchell, Croker, Adokar, Keary, Cronk, Torquiaho, Smith, Bromwich, Burgess, Kickout, Tormalolo, and on the bench is Jake Trbojevic, Cordner, Andrew Fafita, and Damien Cook.
Pretty good team.
Pretty solid side.
Yeah.
Now, the second half of this poll. First question, biggest hitter. And they got Dylan Napa, 33%. Your mate Victor Radley, 26%. Sam Burgess, 19%. James Fisher-Harris, 7%. And Tarek Sims, 5%.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with those players, hey?
Yeah. Last year, Napa topped the poll as well, and again with 33%. Burgess had 15%, Fisher-Harris 13%, DeBellin 11%, Tarek Sims 9%. It's almost the same players. The only one that's changed there is Radley's come in.
Yeah. It's crazy how hard Radley can hit for the size of him.
Yeah.
I tell you, there's the young bloke for the Storm that was going to take over at hooker. What's his name?
Brandon Smith?
Kid. Yes. I'm a little bit surprised he isn't there because he can hit like a truck. He's another small player, relatively speaking. He's probably about 6'2", but
he has got a gorgeous technique, that kid.
Yeah, and he just throws himself into everything 100%. So I think he will be on that list next year. But yeah, everyone on that list, it's very hard to argue with.
Absolutely. Hardest to tackle. Top on this list again, Jason Taumalolo, no surprise there,
Yep.
45%. RTS, 17. Kick-out, 10%. Ponga, 7%. Latrell Mitchell, 6%.
Yeah, I think that's about right too. Hey, I think that. I mean, Taumalolo, if it had been 100% for him, I would have been like, "Yep, next." I just think it's crazy what he's doing. But anyway,
it's very similar to last year. Taumalolo and RTS were again the top two there. Fafita had 6%. Ponga 5%. Inglis 5% last year.
Tell you who's not there. Tedesco.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm surprised he's not on that list at all.
I wonder if, from a player's perspective, because we look at him and we're like the footwork and his evasiveness and stuff. I wonder if, from a player's perspective, they're thinking, yeah, but once you get your hands on him, you can get him down easy. Whereas if you look at someone like an RTS, he's still bloody strong. You get your hands on him, he might leave you behind still.
I think RTS, though, has one thing that Tedesco doesn't, and that is that freakish step from a standing start.
Yes.
Like, Tedesco has to be moving for his step to work. It's a good step.
Yeah.
But RTS can bring it out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's true. Like he could be 2 meters to your left hand side, and you're moving up in defence, and all of a sudden he's gone past you on the right, and you're like, how the fuck did that happen? He's at a standing start, you know.
All right. So next question. This one wasn't asked in 2018, so this is a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Best sledger.
Oh wow.
Getting edgy now.
Yeah.
Top of the poll, 41%. Will Chambers.
Oh, wow, that's great. I love that.
15%, James Maloney.
Yep.
And then all on 3%, Josh Dugan, Latrell Mitchell, and Tarek Sims.
See, I feel as though Gary Freeman should still top this list.
If this was around in that time, Gary Freeman he'd be the only person to ever do better than 100%.
Yeah, he'd get like 175%. We should try and get him on the podcast. He would be such a good guest.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
One person I'm surprised isn't on here is Josh Maguire.
Yeah. Maguire. I tell you, another player that I almost thought he would be on there was Cameron Smith. And not in the regular sledging that you think about, just talking back to you, you know?
Chirping.
Yeah.
He sounds like a chirper.
Yeah. Trying to think of anyone else that stands out as a bit of a talker. No one really does.
I would have put Mitch Moses in there, but it would have been only towards his own teammates.
A couple of weeks ago, Paul Gallen knocks on and turns around and yells at the dummy half. Like he, you know.
Yeah, I did laugh at that.
That was hilarious.
The next coach in waiting. So this is which player would be the next best coach.
Okay.
I'm not surprised with the top two here. Cameron Smith, 36%. Cooper Cronk, 18%. Then Blake Green, 6%. And James Maloney and Wade Graham, both on 3%.
Wow. James Maloney, I can't imagine coaching. But yeah, that seems about right. Hey, I feel as though Cameron Smith and Cooper Cronk, if you said in 10 years' time they're going to be coaches, in 10 years' time they're going to be high up in the running the NRL in some way, if you said that they're going to be team owners, I wouldn't be shocked by any of it.
I think Cameron Smith will definitely go into coaching.
Yeah.
That bloke has a brain for the game like no one I've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Cronk, I think he's going to be a major player in the media side of things. I don't think he's going to go into coaching.
Yeah. But he could. If he wanted to, he could.
Yeah.
But he might be in the same sort of vein as like Peter Sterling. I feel as though Sterling was very much like that, and people have been like, come on, do it. And he just enjoyed being in the media more. It was, and I respect that. It's, being a coach, I can't imagine is all that enjoyable if you're not built that way.
Exactly.
And I think, I've got no problems with it, picking from having called games, and I'm not saying that I'm some rugby league commentator, even though I am as an expert as well. It's so much fun. I can't imagine being paid for it. The amount of money that these commentators get paid, they must be like waiting for the tap on the shoulder and people to walk in and say, "Listen, we know you're having too much fun. You got to do it for free now."
Okay, next question was, if you were starting up a new NRL team, who is the first player you would sign?
Oh, I love this question. Okay, go.
20% Kalen Ponga.
Wow.
11% Cameron Smith.
Yeah.
10% Cooper Cronk. 10% Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. 8% Tedesco.
Wow, that's so cool, that question.
That's a brilliant one.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't have Cronk because it's definitely the end.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to want someone young who I can build a team around.
But having said that, if I could get a 3-year commitment out of Cameron Smith, I sign him straight away.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about it. It's like I wouldn't have Tedesco. I would probably want. I get Ponga. I would definitely have Taumalolo in there.
Taumalolo would be my first pick. Because he on his own can carry a forward pack. You can go and say, right, if this is one of those weird draftings where you'll have to take a picking turn, I'd go, right, Taumalolo, now focus on the backs and the halves.
Yeah.
Get that sorted, then come back to the forwards.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I think personally, if I was put together a team, it would probably, as I said, if I went to Cameron Smith and said, listen, I'm willing to have you till you turn 40, 41 even. Right? I'm not even joking though.
No, because the good thing is, okay, he's you see him now. He's doing things now to preserve himself, and sometimes that means he shifts into first receiver, so he's not being tackled a lot or doing a lot of defence.
Mm-hmm.
It happens a lot. He's been doing it since about 2014, 2015. He was doing it in the 2016 grand final. I remember watching that, where Cronk was being so heavily targeted by Luke Lewis that Smith decided to go into first receiver so that he could give the Storm a genuine first receiver option again and take away that drama that was going on with Cronk being tagged so heavily. Very nearly worked for him. So he's been doing a bit of that, and it's been doing it a bit more often of late. So you could probably get him and just carry him at 5'8" or something in the last 2 years.
Yeah. And
just his voice on there would be brilliant.
Yeah, and the culture that he'd bring in and all of that. And even down the track, I would say to him, look, we think that we want you to, after you retire, we want you to be part of the club. You're always going to have a job here, and we hope that you're the coach one day. So he'd probably be my first one if I could get that sort of commitment out of him. If not, if he said, look, thanks, I've got 1 year left in me, I would go Taumalolo. And then after that, I would probably go Ponga, because Ponga, super marketable, very young. And then after that, and people are going to get angry when I say this, I'd look at Cleary.
Yeah, look, I probably wouldn't mind looking at him either, purely because actually, I'll go one further. I'd probably go Kyle Flanagan. Because he's got that goal kicking ability. He's a bit younger, and I think he's got the potential, like Cleary has, to be absolutely top notch.
Mm-hmm. He's playing so well, straight out of the box too.
Yeah. Next question was best step. Now, 3 players here made up 97% of the vote.
Wow.
Number 1, Kalen Ponga, 56%.
Yeah.
37% goes to Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, and 4% went to Sean Johnson.
Sean Johnson still, wow. I'm trying to think if anyone else stands out in terms of having. I'll tell you what, Cameron Munster, he showed it last night.
Munster does have a good step.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of anyone else that really stands out in terms of their step.
Yeah, I'm starting to see now why most three players took up the majority of the vote.
Yeah, because they're the ones that it stands out. It's like, oh yeah, him. Um, I mean, Tedesco, I wouldn't say he's got a step more than he's got footwork.
Yeah, I don't think Tedesco's got a step. He's more of a his running style's a bit more like Steve Rogers. He sort of has a bit of a swerve.
Yeah, he
Um,
gets you with that, and because his footwork is so good,
yeah,
and you
and
know
he
that he
does
can.
have surprisingly good pace.
Yeah, very, very good pace. So yeah, it's hard to argue with that list.
I agree.
I would love to see that same list from when Matty Bowen was playing, because Matty Bowen was a
What year, Matty Bowen?
probably first half of his career. Matty Bowen would have. I mean, he had maybe
'Cause
the best footwork I've ever seen from a footy player.
the
He,
reason
if
I
you,
ask is, would Benji Marshall have dominated those things then?
oh yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Benji Marshall had that. It was almost like Benji Marshall's step was kind of like Brad Fittler's in that it was like an atomic bomb went off in the game when that come out,
Yeah,
you know. Whereas Matty Bowen, it was almost every time he ran the ball, it was like step. Whereas with someone like Benji, it was like bang,
what
game's
was
changed.
that?
Yeah.
Um,
So that's a very good point.
uh, I will be surprised if we ever see someone come into the game with a step more amazing than Benji Marshall's when he hit the scene.
Yeah, it was.
Because you know
It,
the thing that made Fittler's one so good was not just how big it was, because he's a big guy.
yeah,
It wasn't just how big it was the fact that as he pushed off, he got faster, and so it
yeah,
meant that not only did you miss a step, but you couldn't catch him when he got past you either because he was just gone.
mm,
And he was never a fast player, but he used it to propel himself forward. Benji's was Benji would do that crazy step standing still
mm.
and still get around you, and because he's so much smaller, it was just unbelievable. Plus the fact he had that weird jinking action going on with his knees and his body. The first thing it did
Yeah.
is the defender stopped moving because they're gone, I have to try and catch this bloke. And it's like you're trying to catch a chicken. That's because you see defenders like that when he's sitting, when the line gets set straight and Benji got the ball and he started doing those weird steps, everyone stopped moving. And straight away you went, they're sitting ducks.
And he did this thing too. He'd hold the ball in two hands,
Yeah.
and you could see him physically like loading the step up. And the opposition players, as you say, they'd stop and they'd be like, he's about to do it. Which way is he going to go? By the time that thought entered their head, he was gone.
That's right.
And the thing is too, he might go bang, bang, bang. And so you're like, what the fuck just happened? That was the thing about him that was amazing.
And then you throw in the fact that defenders also knew that he could and would regularly throw passes, either flick passes or no look passes. So he could still be looking straight at you and still throw that ball. And so there's too many things for a defender to think about when they're dealing with him. And sure, they didn't all come off. But the fact is, they come off often enough for it to sit in the back of your mind and go, it could work here. I don't want it to be against me, but you don't know how to defend it. We're not going to see someone who'll be able to do that to a defensive line. I'd be surprised if we ever see that again because I don't think we saw it any time before either.
No, I can't think of somebody before that had that complete combination of I've got the ball in two hands, I can flick past it, I can put out a long pass, watch my body, watch my footwork, and while you're thinking all of this, he goes step, and he's doing something here, and then he flick passes around his back, and it's like it's just incredible what he was doing at that age, and I love that from that player who had the ability to do that. Now you look at Benji Marshall, and he's a heavier player now. He's just better built, which has obviously helped his longevity because when he was younger, he just was so slight, it was really breaking him down playing first grade. But now he's like, he guides teams around the field. He steps up when he needs to step up. It shows the quality of him as a player that he's able to do that. There was a certain time in the game where I felt like Benji Marshall was the best player in the world. And he just, it was when physically he was still able to do a lot of that stuff, but mentally he also grabbed command of the game and was able to really control a game. And even when the West Tigers were losing matches, it wasn't because of Benji Marshall. Benji was trying everything, and he had, how many bludger backs did he have to play with?
And forwards.
Forwards and coaches.
Yeah, I mean, that 2009 to 2011 period, that was when he was at his peak, because he was in that transition from being that exciting young player. He still had those steps and those passes and stuff. But he also went into this transition where he started to, I think, mentally slow down with his thinking processes and make more better options and more better decisions more often. And that's what we're seeing now, is he makes good decisions far more often now than he ever has before.
Yeah, and he changed from playing what was in front, and this is what all good halves do. They change from playing what's in front of them to setting up and thinking about what's going to happen after they do this, or what the reaction of these players is going to be, not necessarily for how they are just going to stop him, but if they all do this and stop him, it's going to open something up for the players outside of him off the next play the ball. And when he got to that point, that's when I felt like he was the best player in the game. And I feel like it was a good couple of years where he was the best player in the game.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Next question. Who will win this year's State of Origin series? New South Wales 2-1, 46%.
Wow.
New South Wales 3-0, 26%. You're all wrong.
Yeah, all
wrong. Queensland 2-1, 18%. And Queensland 3-0, 10%.
Far out. That's pretty big for Queensland 3-0.
Yeah.
All the Queenslanders.
All the passionate ones, anyway.
Yeah.
Which player most deserves to make his State of Origin debut in 2019? And the top two didn't even make their debut yet.
Oh, wow.
Luke Keary, 43%. Dale Finucane, 18%. Cody Walker, 13%. Cameron Murray, 11%. And Victor Radley, 2%.
Wow. I'm surprised Radley's so low down that list.
Yeah. So here's a good one, which is kind of this is almost an opportunity to be a little bit critical towards the NRL, if you like.
Okay.
In the most gentlest possible way. Should the NRL increase, decrease, or maintain the current number of NRL clubs in the competition?
Oh.
50% said increase.
Yeah.
45% keep it as it is, and 5% said cut teams.
That's interesting. I mean, you would think that the players should 100% be saying more teams, because more teams means more opportunities.
Well, that's right. I'm surprised that there was 5% saying decrease.
Yeah, I never understand why people want less teams. I mean, when you look at the worst team's probably the Bulldogs, and they're a bit of an anomaly, I feel as though. But if, say, you look at the Titans as the next worst team, they're pretty damn good for a bad team.
Yeah. I agree. And there's not much difference between, it's only one or two good buys, and they go from being, a bottom team to a top 8 side. And that goes for every club.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Deciding drawn games.
Ooh, this will be a good one.
Golden Point, 44%.
Oh, that's high.
Keep it as a draw after 80 minutes, 18%.
Mm-hmm.
Golden Try, 14%. Extra time followed by Golden Point, 14%. And just plain old extra time after a draw, 10%. The thing for me is that the most intelligent option is the one that got 10%. Because I think they should just have extra time. Doesn't matter who scores first or what they do. Just have an extra 10 minutes of footy.
See, I like Golden Point. I I've got no problems with Golden Point. I think the thing that jumps out for me there is that overwhelmingly players want the game decided.
Yeah,
They don't. They're like, if you look at it as games, do you want the game decided versus a draw? It is overwhelming. They want the game decided.
that's right. And one thing that was also good for me is that they haven't they haven't gone all in on the whole golden try idea because I thought that was one of the dumbest ones out there.
Yeah, I don't get golden try. I don't like the thought that, and you bring in scenarios like, okay, you get a penalty right in front, you kick a goal, now you're up in the game.
That
Like, what happens now?
that's exactly right.
It's
You know,
just dumb.
because you say right, the whole idea is that by the end of golden try, the team who scores a try wins the game. But if one team kicks a field goal,
Mm.
do you award a try even though do you award it as a draw despite the fact no tries are scored but one team's higher on the scoreboard? It's stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
Or a team, or how's this? A team kicks 3 penalty goals and then the other side scores a try.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And they win the match. Yeah,
Yeah, they win the match despite being behind on the scoreboard. Dumb.
Really dumb.
Don't
Super dumb.
don't ever argue with me about the validity of golden try. It's stupid.
Yeah. Well, that's why, you know what, Andrew? That's why you're an expert.
um, must be. I can't argue with that. The next one is expansion. Where should the NRL expand to next?
Ooh, okay.
Perth, 41%.
Yeah.
Brisbane, it's not expanding there. You're already there. Anyway, 18%. Wellington, 7%. The Central Coast, 7%. And Central Queensland, 6%.
Ooh. See, I wouldn't mind living in Central Queensland either. Not Central Queensland. I think that when they say Central Queensland, they mean the Central Coast of Queensland.
The Central Coast wouldn't be bad, but if they're talking about Roma...
Fuck that.
That's hard
at that point. And hello to all our listeners in Roma. Yeah, I'm surprised.
I've been to Roma. I've been through the place as well. Full respect to the people out there because I know how hard it is living on the land, and you guys are doing it bloody tough out there. Bloody hell.
I'd say I'm a city boy. Always lived in Sydney, so I like my big shopping centres and my roads.
To those people in Roma and other parts of rural Australia, I'll see if I can get Freaky out to the bush one day, and I won't take him out to look at stuff. I'll get him out there and work the bastard too, so that he can come back on here and he can talk like a country person. Oh, these city kids, they don't know how fucking easy it is.
I was just helping it over the fence. I've been to Tamworth, and I don't know if I've talked about Tamworth on the podcast, but geez.
Yeah. When they did this, they actually asked this question last year, and back then Fiji got 11%.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
And no expansion to take place got 9%.
Oh wow. So we've talked about this a little bit. The one that surprised me there is Wellington. I guess that Kiwis probably voted heavily for Wellington. I wonder if they were given an option, or if it was just tell me where you think straight out of the blue, or if they were given an option and Wellington was one of the options. I'd like to know that.
I think with New Zealand, I could be wrong here, but I've been there twice. Okay, to both islands, and I get the impression that the South Island is rugby union and the North Island is rugby league.
See, my understanding is that Auckland is rugby league in terms of like where the vast majority of the strength is, and everywhere else is a little bit similar, but as you go further south, it becomes more towards rugby union. And when I say similar, I mean league is sort of, there's a few players that play league, but then as you go more south, you get less and less of that. Yeah. Whereas Auckland is where it's really at. That's why I always found it weird when people talk about they should have a Origin series in New Zealand and have it Auckland versus everyone else, and it's like, yeah, I want to be on the everywhere else team. Yeah. It's like,
isn't it amazing how the 3 nations which started playing rugby league first have all struggled going south, but they've never had an issue going north.
That is a good point. That is a really good point. Okay, so
France was the first one to buck the trend because they were big in the
that's
south
exactly what I was starting to
south
think. Yeah,
yeah.
I guess
Demographic signal.
that's a good sign for Canada.
That's true. Right, what was the next one? Referees.
Hmm.
Risky one. How do you rate referee performance out of 5? 2019, they said 3.1 out of 5.
Okay,
And in
that's not bad.
previous years, it was 2.6.
Yeah,
So
so they've gone up.
they've gone up half a point.
And I feel like that is reflective of what I'm seeing as well. I think the refereeing, apart from a couple of referees, has been really, really good this year.
Yeah, look, I think there was this conflict last year where the players were happy to have the ruck cleaned up, but they didn't like the fact that it meant, 40 penalties in a game or 30 penalties in a game.
Mm.
And so there was a conflict there and they didn't know which way they wanted to go. I think they've kind of hit a comfortable mark where they are now.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that the game is being refereed more naturally for what rugby league wants out of the flow of the match.
Yeah.
And there seems to be less of the pedantic penalties that we saw a lot of last year. You still see them every so often where you're like, well, what was that penalty for? Or, there'll be a player that's, lying on the ruck for a second too long and they'll blow a penalty and you're like, that's a bit harsh. But overall, I think we're seeing less of those penalties this year.
Exactly. The nines, what do you think of the nines concept? 67% love it, 30% are indifferent, and 3% hate it.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's pretty good. That's a good sign for the Nines.
Yeah. The percentage hating it has dropped significantly. So last year when they did this, 26.5% they hated it.
Oh, wow. And it wasn't played this year too.
Maybe that's it.
So that's a big difference there. It's always easy to love something when you don't have to deal with it.
That's true. That leads to an all new lot of questions right there.
Yeah. What the hell did I just say?
Should the NRL introduce a player transfer window? 72% say yes, 28% say no.
I don't understand this. Like, what the hell does that mean? A player transfer window?
I think it's something similar to what they've got in the EPL. I don't fully understand it either, but I think they've got a set period of the season, and it might be mid-season, where this is the only time of the year the players are allowed to talk with other clubs and talk about their future for next year, and you can change clubs and whatever then, and you get like a month to do it.
Ah,
So
and then
you don't have the speculation going on all year. You don't have managers talking to teams all year. You've got a set month where you can do all that shit and get it out of the way in one go.
See, and I know when I say this, you're going to be like 100%. The idea that the players and the managers and the clubs are not all going to just talk 100% of the time anyway. I mean, it's so silly to think that they're just going to be like, look, I would love to talk to you about upgrading, Gutherson's contract, but I can't. My hands are tied. There's some rules.
You cannot police that.
Not at all. Look, they can't police the current rules where, like, so how are they going to bring in a rule where you're not allowed to even talk about it? Like,
It's because there's been this growing discontent among a whinging bunch of fans going, I hate the fact that players are talking to other clubs all the time and we've got a player at our team who's going to be here next year and he's already signed a 15-year deal with Parramatta for 2021. They're going, deal with it. It's their lives. They've got to do this shit.
Just grow up. These people need to grow up. It's 2019.
Yeah. If you had to leave your club, which team would you want to sign with?
Oh, wow.
Roosters, 27%.
Ugh.
Storm and Broncos, 15%. South, 9%. And the Titans, 8%. And that one I laugh at because I think that is one not because they want to go and play for the Titans. I think they're going there for recreational purposes.
That's a really good way to put it. There's some really, really, really nice libraries on the Gold Coast.
Oh, mate.
Um, wonderful places.
Great parks with swings too. They
Yeah,
really look after their swings there. Kids love it.
yeah. It's fantastic.
So the thing that gets me about that is if 8% of players would be happy to go to the Titans, how are the Titans struggling so much to build a strong roster from 1 to 17?
It's a really good point. Look, their roster isn't terrible, but
No.
how do they not attract better players if the Gold Coast is such a lure? That's a really good point. And my guess is the lack of crowds probably put some players off. And I guess after that, it's like you can't sign everyone. Maybe it's just bad management. They get to a point where it's like we can't afford these players that want to come here.
This is the thing is, last year when they did this poll, the Titans were on it again then. So the Broncos were 20%, Storm 17, Roosters 11, Titans 9. For some reason, Dragons and Manly were both at 6.
The Dragons are an historic team. They've been around since 1999. So that's one reason.
And we could upset some Manly fans and say they've been around since 2003.
Well, they have. That's when the Manly Seagulls were founded. And can we just thank the North Sydney Bears for allowing the Manly Seagulls to exist today? Because without the Bears, the Seagulls don't exist. Think about that, Manly fans.
There's a carrot for them. You're going to get some hate mail over that.
Oh, wow. All 15 of them.
Which team do you most love to beat? The Storm, 21%, Roosters, 17%, Broncos, 13%, Sharks, 12%, and the Rabbitohs, 8%.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. I think it's funny the Sharks are there, hey?
I think it's because they've got that in-your-face style, and they grind you down, so you've actually got to play pretty tough, gritty footy to get wins against them.
And let's be honest, they turned into pricks at one point.
Well, when they won a premiership, yeah.
Just turned into utter pricks. It's like, what the hell's their problem? Be happy.
Well, success breeds ego, and they finally had some.
Yeah.
So then they sort of go out around going, yeah, we're better than the Titans and the Warriors.
Too bad it didn't breed, money.
Wow. You never know. Jeffrey Addison is still alive.
Yeah, he could maybe look to buy them again.
So that is the NRL player poll.
Oh, that's the end of it. Well, that was pretty good. That was entertaining. Any of it jump out at you that was a little surprising?
Yeah, I think for me the biggest one there, which I mentioned, was the Titans being one of the favourite clubs to go to.
Yeah.
And I suppose the big push into a second team in Queensland. I'm not opposed to it. I've already said I don't think it should be in Brisbane. I think they should be looking at somewhere like the Sunshine Coast. Try and get from Redcliffe to the Sunshine Coast, and maybe even up to, as far north as say Bundaberg.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a big area to draw on there, massive area. So I think that's what they should be looking at.
Yeah. I mean, look, if I was the Titans, I would take that, and I would say we're doing something wrong. We're obviously doing something wrong here because
the players want to come here, and we're doing nothing to help them make that decision.
Yeah, and so there's obviously, I don't know what it would be if it's just the fact that it can't be the fans thing because players go to the Roosters and they play in front of no one. So it can't be just playing in an empty stadium, and it's a really nice stadium that they've got there on the Gold Coast too.
It's a great venue. I've been there a few times. It is brilliant.
So there's obviously something they're doing wrong, and they really need to work out what it is. Whether it is the fact that they seem to never have the sort of coach that players want to say, yeah.
I think that's it. I think the
Yeah.
nail on the head there is the fact that it's the coach. They
Mm.
need to get a coach in there who they want to play under.
Hmm.
And I don't know if Mal Meninga's that person or not, because his club coaching record isn't fantastic.
Yeah.
But maybe he's the sort of personality that they'd be keen to go to. They may see this is the thing. They may see going to the Titans if Mal Meninga was head coach there. They might see that as possibly a quick step into a Kangaroos jumper.
Possibly,
And
yeah.
that could be a carrot to get players there.
See, I would think that if I was a player, I would be, and it was coming down to coaches, I'd want to go to the coaches that made players better and down the track meant that they got a bigger contract from even someone else, which is Bellamy, I think Bennett to a certain extent.
Brad Arthur.
That's very true.
Well, you talked about contracts and getting them upgraded. I mean,
you're correct. I can't argue with you. Yeah, look at what he's done with Gutherson. He really turned him from a reserve grader to being paid like a first grader that's actually a reserve grader. So, yeah, that's probably the thing.
Anyone listening would think we just hate Parramatta. We don't. We don't hate Parramatta. We just don't have high opinions of Mitch Moses and Clinton Gutherson.
Yeah, we don't hate Parramatta. We hate Manly.
I can go with that.
Oh man,
I can hate any NRL team if I really want to, I guess.
So this is the way I look at life. Hate everyone. Then you're not leaving money out.
That's exactly right.
I reserve my biggest criticism for the Panthers. And anybody that wants to whinge about what I say about their club, just go and have a look at some of the stuff I've said about the Panthers.
Yeah, look, and I must admit, I think I've been one of the, not so much this year, but in the past, I've been one of the loudest critics of the Tigers. So
yeah,
I can't be criticised of bias because I'm not one of those people that sits there and thinks that my team's bloody flawless while everyone else is crap. I hammer my club more than anyone else. We sound a bit like Buzz Rothfield, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's his whole thing.
That's his motive, because whenever he's struggling for a story, you go, right, I'll just dig up some shit at the Sharks.
Yeah. I guess it works for him, hey?
Yeah, well, it's got him where he is, I guess.
Where's our money? I'm looking for our money. What's for him? Where's the money? Nah, it's not you. Sorry.
Alrighty, well, we might wrap this one up. It's gone on quite a bit. We'll do our quick, any quick shout-outs you want to do, mate?
Shout out to Nadine, our biggest fan. It's fantastic. Shout out to the starting block, as always.
Drop the K at the end.
Yeah, no K at the end. Look up the starting block. What else? Go and jump on Patreon. Look up Rugby League Project on Patreon and donate to that. Fantastic, brilliant website. My favourite website to go to. And what else? What else have we got?
We've got leaguefreak.com.
Oh, yes, of course.
That's where you should go for all your rugby league news.
I wrote about the NBA the other day, hey?
I was going to say all sporting news.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can go there for that. Brilliant site, that one. Check out all of our Twitter accounts. There's the Fergo Freak Pod Twitter account for the actual podcast. If you want to get something read out or you want to say something that you want us to discuss on the show, send it to the Fergo Freak Pod on there. Just talk to them on there. It just makes it easier for us because obviously with Freaky, because he's got such a large following, I mean, he practically lives on Twitter, constantly responding to everyone.
It's difficult. And if you ask a question you want on the podcast, it kind of gets lost in the sea of people.
The avalanche.
Prick or saying I'm wrong or
And for me, I've got a completely different audience. I don't have anywhere near as the size of audience as Freaky here, but the audience I've got tend to be asking me questions like, can you list all of the captains who and their win percentages since 1908 for one certain club played on June on a Sunday when the temperature was 23 degrees?
Yeah, just bring that up.
Yeah, so I tend to get a bit bogged down chasing up stats for people.
Can I have a spreadsheet of all of your statistics, please? Thank you.
I have had that request. Someone asked for all of our database. I said, "Oh, can you just send me all of your database?" I said, "Just go to the URL."
Yeah.
I said, "No, I want it in a spreadsheet."
Mm.
Do you realize how big our database is and the limitations of spreadsheets? Well,
And
maybe two spreadsheets then. I said, no,
yeah,
mate, that's not going to work this way. You're not getting what you want out of
spreadsheets.
it.
Two spreadsheets. Can I have it on two of them? Oh man, that's funny. I like all of the tools that you use. There's one tool that you use on that site. I love it.
Yeah, we've got a few going on there. We've got some more coming. Yes.
Moving on.
Moving on. Moving on. We won't go into that one.
No.
Secret special stuff. So yeah,
Periscope.
Periscope, yes. Well, goodness.
Eventually.
We're getting closer to figuring out how to use it properly.
Yeah, our test run was really, really good, really successful.
The test run worked flawlessly. And the issue we had since then, which was yesterday, because we had the live show we were going to do, and we did do, but the audio didn't work. And we didn't realise until we went to play it back and heard just silence. And I spent most of the first half of Origin just constantly banging my head against the wall. So then we came on after Origin and thought, we'll do it again. And this will be more of a test run just to see how it goes. And for 90 minutes, everyone heard me talking to silence. I don't know why, but Freaky here could not be heard. So I'll look at it this way. That's a 50% improvement on what we previously pushed out.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. Hopefully by Origin 2, we'll be able to put on a live show that everyone can hear, both of us on.
People will probably see us testing from time to time. Feel free to jump on, have a listen.
If you're on Twitter late at night on any day of the week, there's a fair chance we'll be on there. Your feedback would be helpful because it might actually help us identify what the hell's going wrong. Because we're clueless.
Yeah.
I spend my time looking at old newspapers. You know, trying to figure out technology, some of these I've never used before. I'm getting more and more like an old man.
Look, I spend my time watching pornography and playing the Xbox, so it's all just a mystery to me as well. If you see us broadcasting live, feel free to jump on and say, I can hear you both, or I can only hear one of you, or I can't hear anything, or just something constructive, because that would be fantastic. Like, we really do need that feedback from that.
And yes, just a quick bit of breaking news, actually, I've just seen on Twitter we can throw on here.
Yeah.
South Sydney halfback Adam Reynolds has been sidelined indefinitely with a back fracture, which he suffered against Parramatta.
Oh, wow.
Wayne Bennett says he'll return when the pain goes away. He isn't sure how long he'll be out for, but says it's more like weeks, not months.
Well, at least it's not long term, but a back fracture. Well, wow, because he had his leg injury. They were worried he'd broken his leg. I wonder if he got a sensation into his leg that was from his back.
Not too sure. Friend of the podcast, NRL Physio, said likely transverse process fracture, extremely painful injury, but structurally not as debilitating, often referred to as pain tolerance issue, usually a 3 to 6 week recovery, which, if it's the worst case scenario there, he's not playing Origin this year.
Yeah, so he's done in terms of that. Far out. Hey, that's the thing about Reynolds, and I mean, with some players it can be bad luck, and other players are just injury prone. And just whenever he gets going, and just when you start to stop worrying about him getting injured, then he gets injured.
Yeah,
and it just stops out.
He's such a good player, and he busts his ass so much. It's bloody disappointing.
Damn.
For him more than anything else.
Well, that's a big break on South Sydney season too, because Walker's going to come back. I mean, wow, that's massive. That's absolutely massive.
That changes them an awful lot. I don't know how they recover from that. It's a good thing they had a good start to the year because it'll keep them in finals contention. But they need Reynolds back fit. Hopefully, he's only out for a few weeks, 3 or 4. That I think they'll be fine, but they can't have much more than that.
And if it's a pain tolerance thing, that's fair enough. But I tell you what, if it was my back, I'd be saying I'm not coming back until I am 100%.
Yeah, backs are dicey.
Yeah, you don't want to be carrying it.
No.
I definitely wouldn't be carrying it, especially where Souths are on the ladder. And just it's going to be interesting to see how they go without him because he's been fantastic this year.
Yep. So that's our first bit of breaking news.
Yeah, shocking.
On that note, I guess we might wrap it up and say thanks for tuning in, everyone. Yeah, follow us and like us on iTunes and give us shout outs on there and 5-star reviews, and we're on YouTube. Do the same thing there. That'd be fantastic. I think that's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Absolutely. Catch you later.